here this afternoon. There are how many wonders in the world? 7. As of now, there are 8. So if you can picture the scene, it is 1997, and it's raining, and it's November. And we're standing in this building, and there is water pouring through the ceiling. And at that time, in 1997, we had no money at all. But we took the step of spending $80,000 replacing the roof so we could preserve the building for some future idea. And gradually, the bourbon business has started to rebound a little bit. And we found ourselves with a little bit of cash. And we found ourselves out of meeting space all over the distillery, which is hard to believe as big as it is. So we concocted a plan with Meredith that we would convert this into meeting and convention space. 3 levels. We'd figured out that since this floods every 10 years, we were going to have concrete and we'd be able to wash the whole thing out. So we laid all the plans. We cut a hole in the floor so we could put a big elevator in for all the events. We had all these great plans, and we got started. And the first thing that had to happen is we had to reinforce the iron posts so we could hold a lot of people upstairs. And to do that, we had to get a construction company in to strengthen the floor joists and the foundations. So we brought Jarbo Construction in, and where is Tim? So in they go with pickaxes and everything to hack away the floor, and thankfully, mercifully, Tim and Jarbo said, stop. We've hit a brick wall. You lot might want to come down and take a look. Now, what was interesting about what we thought was down there was the fact that none of the 80 and 90-year-old retirees knew anything about what was beneath the concrete. Elmer T. Lee, who knew everything about everything here, had never mentioned the fact that there was anything beneath this floor. We just thought it was the concrete floor. So once we got that idea in our head that, oh, there's something down here, we immediately turned to Nick Moriquenti. Where are you, Nick? Who is our resident archaeologist, and Maureen Peters, where are you? Maureen, and Carolyn Brooks, where are you? There you are, Carolyn. And we said, this might be a great idea to find out what's actually down here. And so the digging began very carefully, and eventually we realized that there was something very special. Now, in parallel with that, we had lots of sandborne maps of the facility, and we had lithographs of the facility. But we couldn't match some of the lithographs, and we couldn't match some of the sandborne maps up to the facility. And then it became very apparent that it all fit together, that some of these maps that we had and the lithographs, in fact, were of this ancient distillery. So we immediately abandoned the plan to do the building with complete meeting and convention space, because we have come to find out that this is unique in the world. In Scotland, the distilleries don't go back quite as far as they would have you believe, and the only one they've ever found in Scotland they turned into a parking lot. So we are blessed to have something that is unique and preserved and is a remarkable testimony to history. I would like to thank the Kentucky Tourism Development Group and the Act and the tax incentives that came along with that, because that's been extraordinarily helpful on a project like this. And Meredith, our tourism numbers here in the last 12 months finally hit 188,000 people have come through Buffalo Trace in the last 12 months, which would be the most toured distillery in Kentucky, and we think And we think that 500,000 is not an unrealistic number as we go out into the coming decade. So it took a year to get everything uncovered, and Gilpin stonemasons did the historically accurate work on it, and we're very grateful for the work they did on it. At this juncture, I would like to introduce Nick, who is going to say a few words on exactly what makes this site so unusual.
All right, so Mark's not exaggerating when he says this is unique. The stuff that we're about to explore today, we're never ever going to see again in our lifetimes, most likely. There's a few reasons for that. With big industrial distilleries, they're living sites. As technologies improve, as the goals of a distillery change, you bulldoze, you build new buildings, you wipe the earlier versions of histories away, maybe turn them into market lots here in Scotland, apparently. And so these things don't exist anymore. At one point in my career, I'd actually given up on looking at industrial distilleries. I thought small farm distilleries were the way to go. And so then Dennis calls me, and it's like, we're working on a project over here at Buffalo Trace. We found something old, and I ignored the call for a week. He calls back, and he's like, no, seriously, you got to come over here and look at this. So as we started to look at these, we were looking at the maps and such, and Mark asked me, can we put a date to this foundation right here? And I was like, well, we don't have the documents and the links to the lithographs. They don't exist yet. And then the next scoop that Tim takes out with the Bobcat, we actually find a corner detail that matches up 100% with one of the lithographs for the 1873 distillery. It's like, okay, there's your dates. It's 1873. So we have not only the extremely rare event of finding one early layer in a distillery, we actually have three. We have two distilleries down at the bottom, and then the historic distillery that's around us here. But that's not really the only thing that makes this a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Is that the fact that people paused, both Jarbo and then also with Buffalo Trace, being able to stop and rework their project from an event area into this completely unique experience. You're not going to see it any other distillery in the world. So it's been an honor to be a part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, by the way, for your dedication. We couldn't have done it without you. It really has been enormously helpful. Now, a strange thing happened. At a rather interesting afternoon session where we were trying to pick the whiskey for George T. Stagg, the retirees, most of which were in their 80s and 90s, were regaling us about how we used to make whiskey once upon a time. Subsequent to that discussion, we made some of that whiskey, and we liked how that whiskey turned out. And so we had Harlan Wheatley go to the patent office and file a patent on that whiskey. So we've actually patented, pending, that whiskey-making process. The intriguing thing is we didn't have the equipment to make the whiskey on an ongoing basis. So the future plan for this is to actually put one of those fermenters back into action. So when you come in here, this thing, one of them, number 8, will be bubbling and fermenting and cooking that patented whiskey. And it'll have copper lining, am I right? And we're going to build up the bricks around it and actually put it back as Taylor intended it to be. So we're extraordinarily excited about that feature to look forward to. I think it's time to invite Nick and Carolyn and Johanna and Meredith and Maureen Peters and Tim Faulkner up to cut the ribbon.
to the finest distillery the world has ever known. My name is Colonel D.H. Taylor Jr. It's the year 1886. This is the story of the old Fire Copper Distillery, the model distillery plant of the world, where O.F.C. whiskey is made on the banks of the Kentucky.